delicious irony that everyone remains so totally blind to reality that they run to us to protect their children from all kinds of harm, while we are the ones selling off their children's future through national debts. Divine greetings, African royals, wherever you are. Princes, princesses, kings and queens. Welcome again to another episode of W4W Book Reading series. Reading for Enlightenment and Awareness. We are currently reading from the book entitled The Handbook of Human Ownership, a manual for new tax farmers, and today we will be drilling down into chapter 11. However, let's pause a bit and give a warm welcome to our new subscribers. We truly thank you for joining us, and if this is your first time, please make sure to check out the previous episodes and the chapters we have already covered after you finish watching or listening to this episode. So you can be fully caught up with the rest of us. Remember to subscribe and share the session if you haven't already done so others can partake of these two nuggets. And also remember to click the notification bell so you are notified when we upload a new episode. In the last episode, we covered chapter 10, where we learned about the media and how it correlates to tax farming and human ownership and the role it plays. In today's episode, we will be learning more about human ownership and tax farming and how it affects children as we drill down into chapter 11, subtitled Children, the Greatest Resource. Make sure you line up your container to catch all of the nuggets. No make none drop and you not catch it. Catch all of the nuggets then. Yes sir. I do hope that you are well geared up to learn something new today. But before we head on down into today's reading, a quick disclaimer. We might be reading from this book, but it don't mean that we endorse the book or the author. We are just reading for knowledge and enlightenment. Alright? And remember, this is a spiritual mission with our ancestors as our guiding light. And remember, you can always download a free copy of this book at freedomainradio.com so you can read and follow along with us. With that said, grab your notebooks, grab your highlighters and your pens, and let's go open up our eyes some more in this episode. Chapter 11, Children, the Greatest Resource. When we say that human beings are the greatest resource, it's important to be precise about what we mean. Human beings are naturally born with two characteristics. The first is a resistance to arbitrary authority, and the second is a natural susceptibility to obeying universal ethics. Anyone who doubts the first characteristic has never tried to parent a 2-year-old, and anyone who doubts the second has never triggered or experienced moral guilt. Domesticating the human animal does not mean that everyone needs to turn out the same. In fact, it would be quite a disaster for us if they did. To most efficiently control the human farm, you need a majority of broken, self-attacking, insecure, shallow, vain, and ambitious sheep forever consumed by inconsequentialities like weight, abs, and celebrities, and a minority of volatile, angry, and dominant sheepdogs, which you can dress up in either a green or a blue costume and use to threaten and manage the herd. Ruling classes have always had to separate children from their parents. Otherwise, it is almost impossible to substitute weird abstractions like the quote-unquote state or a god for the parent-child bond. Human children, like ducklings, will bond with whatever person or institution raises them, which is why we always need to get children, hopefully as young as possible, to bond with the state through government daycare and quote-unquote education, I guess is the closest word. In the distant past, rulers made the error of forcibly removing children from their parents, which exposed their enslavement and so destroyed their motivation. In the late Middle Ages, children were farmed out to wet nurses, destroying the parent-child bond. In more recent times, the boarding school system separated children from their parents, destroying empathy and creating wonderfully brutal administrators and enforcers for a variety of European empires. And in brackets, see George Orwell, some English novelists and essays. You can check out that. I open and catch the nuggets. Open and catch the nuggets. Let's continue. In our constant quest to perfect human ownership, we have found a far better way to break these family bonds and substitute allegiance to ourselves in the form of patriotism and/or religiosity. It's one of those beautiful win-win situations that come along so rarely. First, we raise the taxes to the point where it becomes very difficult to maintain a reasonable lifestyle if one parent stayed home with the children. We also funded feminist groups to the tune of billions of dollars, one of the greatest investments we ever made, to encourage women to abandon their children and enter the workforce. Make sure so that I catch them nuggets, yeah? Aye, sir. Let's continue. Not only did this help break the parent-child bond, but it also moved women's labor from non-taxable to taxable, a delightful coincidence of self-interest and practicality for us. With both parents working, all we had to do was create a few scares about the quality of childcare, allowing us to move in to control and regulate that industry, remaking it to serve us best. Shoot nuggets a drop all over. And we continue. In some countries, like the United States, Children are effectively removed from parental care by the state within a few weeks or months after birth. In other countries, parents receive direct subsidies to stay at home, which is quite funny when you think about it. And there is precious little room for humor in much of this. We take money by force from the parents, keep a large portion for ourselves, use another portion to run up debts that their children will somehow have to pay off, and then dribble a few pennies down to the mother, who then feels that we are somehow doing her a great favor by allowing her to stay at home. It is a delicious irony that everyone remains so totally blind to reality that they want us to protect their children from all kinds of harm, while we are the ones selling off their children's future through national debts. It really is like hiring a thief to guard your property. And the amazing thing is that this is all so completely obvious and never ever spoken about. Sometimes it would be tempting to feel bad about ruling people, but really they are so very stupid that it seems almost helpful. Parenting has generally improved over the centuries, which also poses a great threat to us, because if children are raised without aggression, they will both immediately see and never accept the reality of human ownership. As parenting has improved, it has become more important for us to intervene earlier and earlier. In the 19th century, it was okay to wait until the cat's kittens were 5 or 6 before we started propagandizing them in government schools. However, as parenting has improved, particularly in the post-Second World War period, we have had to start intervening earlier and earlier, which is why we try and get at kids so soon after birth now. When kids were raised fairly well in the post-war period, it produced the disasters of the rebellious 1960s, which almost finished us, and so we began funding radical feminism, controlling teachers more, and snatching the kids earlier and earlier to fix all that. So, we need some parents to create the sheep, and other parents to create the wolves, or the sociopaths who can be relied upon to attack whoever we point to. These sociopaths can be divided into those who guard the ruling class, the police and soldiers and prison guards and so on, and the criminals that we always wave around to frighten people into running back to our quote-unquote protection. Again, the amount of doublethink required to maintain the delusion that the ruling class is not invested in crime, when even by our rules we are all criminals, is really quite astounding. Governments control almost the entire environment of the poor, from public housing to food stamps to welfare checks to public schools. And it is this environment that produces the majority of criminals. For instance, governments require that children spend about 15,000 hours being educated in state schools, and yet when they emerge from these massive investments as illiterate and violent criminals, no one ever takes us to task. Never ever underestimate the degree to which people will scatter themselves into a deep fog in order to avoid seeing the basic realities of their own cages. The strongest lock on the prison is always avoidance, not force. Open to catch the nuggets. Open to catch the nuggets another one, yeah. Look out for the next chapter. And at the next chapter, never land. Much more nuggets down there to discover. See ya! So, we've reached the end of today's episode, and thanks again for listening, and I do hope that you learned something new today. If you find this series educational and informative, please subscribe and join us as we continue, reading towards the global awakening and enlightenment of our people. A mammoth task, but it can be done. And again, please be reminded that not because we read a book here means that we are in agreement with the philosophies of the author or the context of the book. We are simply reading to become more knowledgeable about things we didn't know about but should. If it exists, then why shouldn't we know that it do? Just simply that. Give thanks again, and thanks for stopping by. See you in the next episode. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and drop your analysis in the comment section, whether you read the book already or you're just reading the book with us. Your comments are welcome, okay? Give thanks.